Ah, there we go. I had the wrong mic set up. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you see my screen? Ah, thanks, JD. Just wanted to make sure I had it pointed at the wrong mic, but it looks like I fixed it. We'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. Alright, let's go ahead and start digging in here. Sorry for the delay, we're just giving folks time to join in. So, good morning, Predicted Trades family. Today is January 24th, 2022. We've had an interesting last couple of weeks, haven't we? We zoom on in here. After setting new all-time highs, we have been in a pretty steady sell-off. We're below the daily 200, which we already wicked overnight and have rejected back down. We have the daily 250 a little bit further below at 43.20. I do have a little bit of a zone here. 43.47 was a very key level in the past. 43.56 as well, which we've already wicked and are starting to bounce at. So I'm going to be watching this zone today, and I'll drop down to a lower time frame, but at first it's always good to start macro and move your way smaller and smaller. So what we're looking at here is ES on a daily chart for the last 3 years, because we need to compare this pullback to other pullbacks, right? We had our COVID drop, and once we got back above the 200, not since June of 2020 have we tested the 200. We have stayed above it, with the 100 being our bounce point ever since then. So this is the most significant drop since March of 2020, and the last time we touched the 200 was in June of 2020. So just gotta kind of put it into frame of how significant is this pullback. It's not just your normal reversion to the mean, right? So let's comparatively look at the COVID drop, just to see. We tore through the 200, 250, popped back up after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down days. We did get some relief pop. Even this day, with a big wick, ended up green. And then we, ultimately ended up heading lower before we found our feet and came back. And once we got back, there we go. Once we got back above the 200 for a double tap, we took off. So the reason I go back to look at these things is because we have to start gauging what's going to happen next. This pullback has been pretty sharp. We are in correction territory. We're below the 200. We've wicked it and headed lower already today. Would like to see us hold basically the zone that I've built off of some key levels. We do have some other key levels that we could mark from some of these wicks. Obviously 4300 is going to be a pretty big psychological one. But yeah, in this 250 moving average, which is not normally something we have to look at, but here we are. So let's see, let's go to a lower time frame and start sizing things up. So no squeezes in place really. We've already started to come down to this zone, so let's see if we completely test the bottom of it and can hold. Then we can maybe see a bounce to try to get back up to the 200 moving average today. As you can see, we settled at it all night and gave it a good rejection to head lower. So overall, we'll see, can we hold this zone and start to make the trip back up? If we give out this zone, we've got the 250 down below and the psychological 4,300 as the targets. If this zone can hold, then it's back up to 4,420 for a test during the cash session. One thing that we should absolutely note this week, before I start digging into the other indices, is we do have a ton of tech earnings this week. Let me pull up my earnings list. Darn it, where are you? There you are. Alright, so we've got quite a lot of earnings this week. We've got tech, IBM. We got a lot of tech names this week, which are going to be the ones to watch and the biggest reactions that should affect the market, right? So even though we have IBM on Monday, I'm kind of more interested at Microsoft Tuesday after the bell. That's going to start setting the pace for some of these, FANG reporting this week. I know we had Netflix last week, and we saw how that went. But, doesn't necessarily mean that all of tech is going to follow the same pattern. So, we've got Microsoft on Tuesday. We've got some chips, Intel, Lam Research on Wednesday, as well as Tesla. Xilinx, Boeing, and AT&T are before the bell as well. But I'm kind of going to have my eye a little bit more on the big tech names. And then we've got Apple. And we do have some MasterCard and Visa. So yeah, definitely a lot going on this week. This is the kind of stuff that could at least cause us a good bounce. See, some good earnings or good guidance can start to affect some of these, big names. Caterpillar's going to be another big one for YM. We've got some oil and energy reporting. So, going to be a big week, and this could be what kind of causes us to pop and start heading back up. It could have been a sell-off into such a stacked week. Back to the big picture, especially as we move to the NQ, since we pretty much covered ES. Let's go back to the big picture. Let's see. So, what's interesting is this last pullback, which did get us below the daily 100, but not quite to the 2. We had a run up to set new all-time highs, settled into a daily squeeze, hit the bottom, means hit the bottom, top, get you a double bottom, and then you get a lower high off of a squeeze rejection. Sets the tone, a little bounce at the bottom, and down we go, firing this daily squeeze down. We have basically, since the last pullback, they have taken out all of the profit. So, yes, we are a little bit lower, but overall, with all of tech earnings this week, all the big names, kind of makes sense, at least the magnitude of this sell-off and how we got here. You could just make it as simple as big money's taking profit from all of this run-up, selling off into tech earnings on, the news about rate hikes and whatnot, but a lot of that's been factored in. So, a lot of that has been digested and priced in for some time. So, in my opinion, at least, they can use that excuse to fuel a sell-off. At the end of the day, this sell-off is coming to a head, and some key decision points right around tech earnings. So seems a little bit more than a coincidence to me. Anyhow, in Q, I went back and marked some levels from previous price action. Last night it was pretty interesting how it interacted. We are now all below all of those levels, so I'm going to have to go mark some more. But just to give you an idea, I marked those last night. I covered this just because it was an interesting lesson. So I marked those levels last night. Futures open in Q, wicks a little bit lower, comes back up. Could have gone long off of this 410. I had this zone in between 585, 516, based on previous price action. It ended up being where we bounced at on Friday, and then ultimately where we sold off from. So not surprising, when futures open, slight wick down, back up, settle into that zone all night, and then once the squeezes start to settle in, rejection and heading lower. So ultimately, no squeezes in place right now. We are firing our 2-hour down. So yeah, I'm going to go mark some more levels, and we'll see where we end up bouncing. I assume I'll find a level very similar to ES that I'd like to see us hold to start going to the upside. We are below the daily 200. We're below the daily 200, 250, so definitely some profit taking in tech. But let's keep looking around the board. Ready. Yep, the Ready's got a lot of ground to make up, but at least does have some squeezes intact that could provide support today. So I'd like to see these hold for the Ruddy, for Russell, and head back up. If not, we got that psychological 1900 below. YM. Now below its 250-day moving average. We at least do have some squeezes that are starting to fire, but if we can hold and get back above those, they can be the support right now, and this psychological 34,000 level, so which it's fighting with as we speak. Now let's move on to some individual names. Apple is seeing some decent volume this morning as it slips below this 160. We do have the squeeze to help guide us. Could find support here. We do have the daily 250 a little further below.
Hey, she'll be right down. She didn't hear the door. Alright, bye.
Alright. Let me just double check. No, I'm sorry. That's the daily 100. So we do have the daily 100 a little lower. The 200 is much lower. The 250 way below that. So, sorry, I got confused by my colors on my moving averages. So ultimately, want to see Apple hold this 159 to 160. If not, we're probably going to go visit this 158, the 100 daily moving average. See if we can get a bounce at either that 59 or that 58 to try to start getting our recovery pop. Apple has an ATR of 4 points, so to try to start making a fight back to the mean, it's kind of like a 3-day journey. Apple does report earnings this week, So we'll see if we can start to get a relief pop and maybe guide a little bit up into earnings, and depending on how that goes, could fuel reversion to the mean for Apple. Obviously, we've been downtrending. We shouldn't be perma bulls to think it has to go back up, but we are a little oversold to the downside. All the indices are below, except for YM, although it's pretty much there. All indices are below the third Keltner down. So definitely getting extended to the downside. So, not going to be a perma bull. We try to preach in here that we need to look at both directions and be prepared for each. So, always going to see where we can hold to start making our way back up so I can have targets in each direction and where we might go further as we start to slip further. So, it looks like we might arrive at the 100 before the cash session even starts. So we'll see. Today to the downside, 155, 158, where we could find support if we keep bleeding. If we can bounce and get back up, I'll be watching the 160s, 162.5s, 165s. AMD. Below the 100. Still got a little ways to go to get to the 200. Got a key level of this 114.5 that we are at least bouncing at a little bit this morning. Let's see if we can hold that. We might wick a little, but if we can hold that and start making a recovery back to that 122.5, that'd be nice and can help. So yeah, basically no squeezes in place. If this continues to fire, 108 is my target to the downside. If this can hold, I'm going to be watching the 115s, 120s, maybe 122.5, although I think AMD is going every point strike, so let's see if chips can start getting some love and rotation back in. What do we have? LRCX and, my memory. Intel, LRCX, Xilinx. So we got a lot of chips reporting on Wednesday. So wouldn't be surprised for a little bit of a relief bounce and maybe a little sideways action into Wednesday, but we could see chips start to lead because we still have NVIDIA to report the 2nd of February, which is next week. So AMD, let's see when they report on the 1st. So both AMD and NVIDIA report next week. We'll keep an eye on Intel, Lam Research, and Xilinx. This week, we could see some interesting plays off of AMD and NVIDIA based on those earnings. We like to call those sympathy plays since they're in the same sector and competitors. Depending on how, let's say, Intel's earnings go, you can see similar moves in AMD and NVIDIA. So I like AMD and NVIDIA this week. I'm going to keep an eye on them and potential sympathy plays around those other chips reporting on Wednesday. Moving on. Amazon. Just been getting beaten up. Worth looking at this macro view. Just to see how significant this is. I went back and marked some key levels. And what is this? Again, since June of 2020. It's been sailing along pretty good. But definitely stuck in a very wide range. But here we are back at the bottom of it. So there we go. Now we can see where some of these wicks came from. actually from June of 2020, so we're starting to get back to that. So let's see if any of these zones can start to provide support. Basically, that 2800 is kind of the first we're looking for, considering where we're at. Let's go down to the pre-market because we're already below it. So, ultimately, let's see if this zone today can hold for Amazon, 2740 and 2710 to 2700. Going to be very interesting. If these can hold, we can try to make our way back up to 2800, 2850, 2900. POC still, oh my gosh, just hundreds of points above. So we'll see what we get. Definitely not looking to play this on a Monday. Gonna keep an eye on it, but not a big one. So moving on, let's look at Facebook. Back down at 300. Have a key level at 294. Gonna keep an eye on that. If we start to slip any further after open, our moving averages way above. Yep. So 200 and 100 way above. Where's the 250? Phew, even that's way above. Another key level to watch around that 299.5, basically just the same as 300, but we're below it currently. Also have some others, so overall to the downside on Facebook today. Definitely going to keep an eye on this 295, 291.5. See if that's where we can bounce, make our way back to 300 and above. 310 kind of being the ultimate goal to get back to and start a reversion to the mean. So, keep an eye on those. Facebook reports next week as well. Google reports next week, same day as Facebook. Okay, now it looks like Google goes first, on the 1st, and then Facebook on the 2nd. So next week's going to be fun too. But Google has arrived at the 250 moving average. So let's see. 25, 40-ish range can hold. 2500 psychological level. If that area can hold us and start to get us to bounce, going to be watching the 2600s and the 2650s, but not much further than that on Google because you won't find a ton of volume on the chain much further out, but you do definitely see some at 2600, 2650, maybe 2700, but Google, Amazon, those are definitely going to be later in the week plays for me. Let's see, Microsoft, who does report on Tuesday, and who is acquiring Activision. Let's see. Pretty much still kind of settling and holding this 4-hour squeeze bottom, which is still intact. We also have a 30-minute to help give us some direction on Microsoft today. So definitely a name to watch today as a gauge for tech, and with their earnings tomorrow. tomorrow after the bell. Microsoft is definitely going to be interesting and help set the tone for tech. So as long as it can stay, north of this 200 and hold these squeeze bottoms, I still feel good about a tech-driven relief pop for the market. So, for Microsoft, want to see it hold daily 200 and stay above this 290 to work its way back to 300 and the first mean, which is back at 305 with an ATR of about 9 points. Yeah, that's an easy 2-day journey to get back there. So, gonna watch 290 to the downside to hold. I'll keep an eye on the 285 puts. I'm gonna watch 300 and 305 to the upside. And it is earnings week. We will have elevated premium, but after they report Tuesday after the bell, all that premium is going to get sucked out. So Wednesday on, Microsoft could be a very good play. Netflix, very broken. Go back and look. Every time that Netflix dives on earnings, it goes sideways for weeks. So probably won't be touching it, won't be advising that it's in play. Let it settle, let the means catch up. We'll see what happens. NVIDIA about to arrive at the daily 200. Could end up being a key point to see if we can get an inflection. NVIDIA reports next week, so no elevated premium this week. NVIDIA is probably going to be a big focus for me this week because with a lot of tech earnings and NVIDIA not reporting until next week, there's not going to be that elevated premium. So it's going to be a better risk reward, especially earlier in the week. No squeezes in place, so ultimately let's see if it can hold this 220 to 215 range, which it's almost at. If it can't, we're going to be heading lower, like 210, 205. If this can hold, we can maybe start a relief bounce back to 250, 230. Sorry, 225, 230. Which was in the money when we closed, and now will not be. So all things to keep an eye on. 240s and 250s are on my radar for this week. If we can pop off of this 200 and start to work our way back. Oh, I did not mean to click on that one. Okay, Roku is later in the month. It is very beaten up. Still going to probably let that one settle as well. Streamers have not been getting much love lately. SE. Yeah. I don't think we have any ecom reporting this week. They report much later. Amazon is next week, so probably going to leave SE alone this week. Let it settle and base like I expect Amazon will at these levels. We could see maybe some interesting rallies in this week later on as we get closer to expiration, and with Amazon's earnings next week, they could start to wake up and start making some price action moves in Amazon. So SE maybe later in the week would be a good sympathy play. Anyway, let's just keep moving. SPY. Almost to the daily 250 here already. So, ultimately, can the market continue to just sell off? Yes. But, I do expect some relief bounce at some point, just like we saw even during the COVID drop. After 6 straight days down, you got a few days up. So, at some point, I am expecting that to happen. So we'll see if SPY can hold this 430, 432, start to bounce back. to the 200, which is at 441, 440. Yep, so basically we want to see us hold 430, 432, work our way back up. This could be a range that we are set in for the next day or so until we get into those tech earnings. Ultimately, if the 430, 432 can't hold, I'm going to be looking at the 425s. If it can hold and start making a bounce up, watching the 435s, 440s. Oh, I think I glossed right over the Qs. So, QQQ now below its daily 200. I'm sorry, daily 250. I'll go back and mark some levels, but ultimately I imagine 340 to 342 and a half going to be key today. Trying to hold that zone. Yeah, which is still a hair lower, so we could get a bounce before then. To try and start making our way back up to at least the 250, which is back at 356. Again, we could just settle into the zone for a day or two while we get closer to Microsoft reporting before making a journey back up. And finally, Tesla. Let's review that. Oh my, all the way down at 900 already, and lower. Firing this, what I believe is a daily, to the downside. Let's see. Next key level I have to the downside is 865 and 850. Psychological level, but it's definitely some targets I'll be watching. The 800 as well, just as a further out strike. What do we have down here? Ah, stop that. Oh, this is a little hard to read. Let me back out. Sorry. So we're at the, what is this? Oh, we have a, okay. So we have a daily squeeze that is, let's go back real quick. Okay, there's the beginning of the daily squeeze. That's a few in. Step back out to the daily. Yeah, okay. So a few days in, we're going to open lower down here. Okay, sorry. I was getting a little confused there. So basically, I want to see if this zone will hold. We're going to have a gap to deal with. And we have earnings on Wednesday. So, personally, not going to touch this thing till after earnings. It's not quite as far down as the rest of the market where it closed, but it's with the gap down, definitely going to be catching up. Let's go back down. And let me add my daily Keltners. Okay, so we have the third Keltner down right at about 855, and with the potential step down, it could get to 850. So, yep, Tesla closed at about 1.5 down. It's about to open below 2. So the third Keltner lines up in the middle of the zone I want to see us hold today on Tesla. So let's let it settle. into earnings, and we'll probably have some great plays on Thursday and Friday with her. But to the downside, be watching the 850, 800s. To the upside, I'll add in the 900s, 950s, and 1000s. And last but not least, let's check in on our buddy VIX. Let's go to the macro. Time frame, 3 years. There we go. And let's just go ahead and clear out all these. And clear this. And we'll leave the drawings. So, VIX is starting to approach some, VIX is back above 30, which is a huge level. Up here, things are going to get wild. Our last highs to keep an eye out for would be like 37, and up here around 40. Let's see if we get there. But life above 30 on VIX can sometimes be very short-lived. We can get very dramatic wicks back underneath. So let's see if that's the case today. If VIX, has a little pop, maybe retests 35, but then, starts pulling back to 30. Go back down to a smaller view. We are definitely pumping, so keep an eye on that 35 for potential reversal to head back down to 30. But definitely keep an eye on VIX as we are at these levels. If it starts to get above 40, we are definitely going to see more blood. So, all things to keep an eye out for today. Hope this was helpful for everybody. Good luck today, and we'll see you in chat. Real quick, does anybody have any questions or anything they want me to cover? Feel free to drop it in the YouTube chat. Basically covered all the big tech names. Caterpillar's nearing the 50. They have earnings on Friday. Gonna be interesting for YM. Alright, well, ultimately, I don't think anyone's suggesting any other names to cover, so good luck today, everybody. We'll see you in chat. Let us know if you have any questions, and good luck trading.